after a ton of work, we made it. So I haven't started it yet. I cranked it. It's got oil pressure. I'm gonna go over everything since I kind of just blacked out from basically the time that I discovered my mistake with the crank sensor onto now. Not a whole lot to fill in on, but I'll just kind of go over it real quick. Starting out, everything went together very, very smooth. Just kind of like little tricky things here and there. I haven't got a power steering line yet. This is just heater core hose. I know it's gonna fail. It's gonna leak. It's gonna weep through the entire line. It's gonna probably start making a mess. However, I've ordered a new hose. This hose right here is $120 from Mazda. However, if you order from that website I mentioned prior, Mazdaswag, it is only, I believe, like $60 plus whatever it is to ship. So probably like about 70 bucks. Not nearly as bad. Save 50 bucks. That's good. Power steering, super easy. Nothing special there. I just reconnect all the AC stuff. If the O-rings are bad, I have spares. I just haven't put them on yet just because I think they should hopefully be good. Turbo is easy. Downpipe was easy. I ended up using that hardware kit. Hardware kit sucked. Would not recommend it unless you absolutely need it like I did. And even then, there's probably better alternatives. Hooked up the battery enough to do some cranking on it. Took out some fuses on here for the fuel injectors and the fuel pump. Worked great. The intake, everything is good here. I'm gonna need a new filter, it looks like, but most likely what I'm gonna end up doing is probably just buying a new intake altogether when I go to do my tuning. Headlights look incredible. I have a separate video for those. Bumper went back on super easy. Core support went on pretty easy. One thing I would change from when I took it apart versus putting it back together, leave like this part together. Leave your radiator and AC condenser on the core support. It is a lot easier to take on and off doing that. Just disconnect everything from it and you will have a good time. The hardest part about doing this whole thing, two hardest parts, really kind of hand in hand. The turbo feed and return lines were an absolute pain in the ass to do. I'm hoping that feed line right there isn't gonna get in the way of the shifter. If it does, we're gonna have to find a solution for it, probably just tie it out of the way. The oil lines for the cooler were easy. I ended up mounting the cooler right back here. Might be able to see through there. Yeah, you can kind of see it. That's a cooler right there. I have it bolted onto the crash bar behind here. I ended up buying a nutsert kit from Harbor Freight. Works wonderful. And yeah, that worked out for that. Drain line, pain in the ass. It's super short. It is what it is. I ended up using a straight shot out of the turbo and then a 90 going onto the fitting itself. Because I'm using the stock downpipe, I'm really limited on space because of the cat. Once I go to my new downpipe, I'll have a bit more room, so it won't be as bad. The turbo feed is using a -4 on the top of the turbo. My line is a -6. That was a oopsie on my part. However, all I did is I just bought an adapter, which made it easier to mount the whole thing up anyway. I filled up the fluids. Make sure to go add in the transmission fluid. Make sure you're using this friction additive modifier. Sorry, additive friction modifier from Ford Motorcraft. You need to put that in there on top of, I believe it's 2.6 quarts of 7590. I ended up buying a big jug of it. This is what I bought here. It's Valvoline 7590. Only 4 quarts in that. It is just 1 gallon, so that is kind of unfortunate because that is $60. Transmission fluid is stupid expensive. As far as coolant goes for this first start, I'm just using distilled water. There is coolant in here still a little bit left over, like in the heater core and whatnot. So this won't cause any issues with that. However, once I go to swap to actual fluid, I have some Mazda OEM. I might just buy another quart or another gallon or so of that and just kind of swap it over from there. As of right now, I have the heater going. It is a cold day out, surprisingly, even though we're getting into, like warmer springtime, summer. I just want to run the heater, just make sure this thing doesn't get too cold overnight and then ruin all my hard work. So I think I'm gonna either get the hood tossed on here now or after the fact. I'm gonna get these piston rings, I'm gonna get it started up, get the piston rings set, and then I'd really like to take this thing for a drive. 30 miles down on the new engine. Everything is running phenomenal. I got a couple like weird little things to fix. One of which, well, two of which being the pulleys. One for the tensioner, the other one being the idler pulley. They're both not good. I can hear them just at idle. I can hear them driving. They sound awful, so I'm gonna get those replaced. The other thing is I just found we got a leak. I'm not positive where it's from exactly yet. However, it looks like it's coming from my oil pressure, or no, looks like it's coming from my sandwich plate and oil cooler ordeal. I'm not surprised. They, AN lines, if you're not careful with them, have a tendency to leak. If you know what you're doing, they won't, but sometimes things happen and you mess things up. So I might have oopsed on it. I might have over-tightened one. I might have under-tightened one. I don't know. So I'm gonna jack this thing up. I gotta pull it up and pop this wheel off anyway to get my 2 pulleys on, remove the serpentine belt, all that. At that time, since it's gonna be up in the air anyway, I might as well just go ahead and fix that. I'm glad it's driving really well. I'll take a video actually driving it soon. One thing that's huge that I need to address before I really drive it again, I really need to roll my fenders because they are rubbing bad on these tires. These are, I think, 245s. A little bit aggressive on these, considering on 18 by 9.5s, I think with 35 offset. So it definitely needs some rolling done. Not a huge ordeal. I don't have a roller. So that'll be a thing in the near future that I will be purchasing. Okay, so here are the 2 bearings, or 2 pulleys. This one being the idler pulley. It's this stupid plastic thing in the center, a little plastic washer deal that kind of has to get threaded on. I want to spin these guys real quick and see how they feel. Okay, so here's the first one. This is the idler pulley. See if you can hear that. This pulley is definitely bad. Let's check out this guy here. This one is for the tensioner. No slop in the bearing. Okay, this one, I'm gonna say is good. Now I can go back on the car. This one though, this one needs replaced for sure. Now I gotta make sure these are the same. Okay, so there's some differences on here. Metal, obviously, being stock. This one is plastic. The bearing looks about the same. Let's see if the hardware will fit. Okay, I'd like to show you why this won't work. So, the stock one, you have this type of bearing right here, right? This feeds in here. This centers on here, and then when you put this guy in the back, it pinches the center of the bearing in there. And this is where it rides. This one, you try and do this, the back fits perfect, no issues there. The front, you see it's right up against this plastic. There's no way it can ride right. If you try to put these together and make them ride, you'll see this whole thing spinning, which is very bad. That means the bearing is not going to be your rotational piece, it's going to then be your bolt, which means it will either back out, destroy the pulley, destroy the bolt. Something's gonna go wrong, you're gonna be sad. All right, my friends, I have a updated part now. This is going to be the part that I bought. It is from Continental, as you can see. This should be an exact replacement for this pulley, and I looked at it a little bit earlier today just to make sure. It looks pretty spot on. So these two are identical. If you need to replace this part off your car because yours sounds like this, then I would say buy this Continental part. Pulleys are all on. Super easy. Belt actually goes on a lot easier after it's been ran for a short time, which makes sense. Took me a couple seconds, especially since I knew the route that I needed to go roughly, and then once you kind of roughly know it, you kind of just throw everything together. As far as the fix goes, I haven't ran it yet. It's just sitting up on the jack stands, as you can see. Back on track for trying to figure out what the weird sound is that I think I captured on here. If not, I'll toss in a clip that I recorded, I think it was yesterday, trying to get a little bit of help from the Mazdaspeed community. I've got none. However, I did find someone online randomly in a forum search that said they had a similar sound and it was an exhaust leak. So what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to pop off my heat shields that I have, obviously on the turbo manifold, all that. I want to tighten down at least the top 4 bolts on the turbo, the one holding it to the manifold. Because if you remember, I don't know if I got it on video or not. When I went to install my turbo and everything, I got a stud kit that was specifically for installing a turbo from, I don't remember who the company was. If I remember, I'll add it here. But they ended up only sending 8 out of 9 pieces of every piece of hardware. The water washers weren't even right. The only thing that was right that I was really happy about was the gasket set for the turbo. So like top gasket, side gasket, all that for the downpipe. Those are the only things that really benefit. Everything else hardware was ass. The little washers for the water lines, completely useless. They didn't fit at all. They're like maybe half the size that they needed to be. So what I ended up doing on there is I just put a through bolt on it, and I'm wondering if maybe that might be part of the reason. Maybe it doesn't get the right clamping force and maybe it's leaking through there. So I'm gonna pop off the intercooler here, take off the heat shield on the manifold, swap out that stud, that bolt for a stud, and tighten all the other ones down, make sure they're all good, and see how it is. I'm gonna fire it up then. I'm gonna see if it sounds right. If it sounds right, then we're good. If it doesn't, I'm gonna check the bolts on the downpipe. The reason why I'm not doing it at the same time is because you have to remove the O2 sensor, you have to remove that heat shield, and it's a bit more involved. So I wanna try and just do the easiest ones first. If it works, great. That saves me a lot of issue, answers a lot of questions. If neither of these fix it, I'm gonna pull the accessory belt and go from there. I'm hoping I can track down this issue so that way if anyone else, hopefully watching this video, have that issue, you can have a starting point for it. Because right now, it's either idler pulley bearing, tensioner bearing, power steering, AC, alternator, one of those things, which I've ruled out almost all of them, just because they're either new or they were fine when I put them on, and I even checked them. I was very thorough with checking those to make sure they're good, so that way I don't have, like, I want to check things so that way if something like this happens, I have in the back of my mind, like, okay, this bearing's bad, which is why I replaced the idler pulley, because I knew it was bad. I still put it on just saying, you know, I want to get this thing running, save a couple bucks, and I ended up swapping it out, which wasn't even the issue. So tightening these guys down, I know that gasket is possibly not sealed properly because of that bolt, so this is the best starting point. So I'd say let's get started on this thing, see what can be found, and hopefully fixed pretty easily. So here's where we're at now. I went ahead and I swapped out that bolt in the back there. I don't believe that was the issue, at least not offhand. Reason being, when I went to take it off, it was extremely tight. I ended up having to switch ratchets. I had to use my long-handled one. I had to use straight sockets with very minimal extension just to get it to break free, which means that it was either really tight or just tightened down at the right point to make it seem like it was tight, and it didn't actually do anything to the gasket like it should have. So I don't know if that actually corrected anything. My next thing I'm going to do, which is what I'm doing right now, is I'm putting the intercooler back on. I did not put the heat shield back on. I'm going to start this thing up, see if it still has the sound. If it has the sound, we'll continue investigating. If it doesn't, I'll reassemble. We'll see where we're at then, and kind of go from there. This is a very, very weird issue that does not seem all that common as far as like what people have experienced and what makes sense. So that's why I am kind of at a loss outside of just being something stupid like this, because exhaust leaks normally make a ticking sound, but I have heard them make some other obscure sounds. I've also heard vacuum leaks that make sounds kind of similar to this, but I do not believe it's a vacuum leak because of the way it sounds and it is consistent. I'm not as well a vacuum. All right, I'm gonna start it up, see if the sound is still here. So the sound persists. I'm not sure where else to go here except for maybe the accessories, but it does not sound like it's on that side. It sounds towards the back, which would sound like turbo, but like doing like the mechanic stethoscope thing with like, you know, a pry bar or whatever metal thing you can use to hear, it just doesn't sound like it's bad. So I might pull the turbo inlet and just see if there's any shaft play on there, see if it spins well. I just don't think that it's that. I hope it's not, because this would be my third turbo, but I'm just not really sure what else it could be at this point. It doesn't seem like anything's leaking, and like when I listen to it again, it does not sound like a leak at all. I'm glad I swapped out the stud. It cost me $12, I think, to just get a new pack of 3. This is the pack that I used. I would buy this over the other one, Dorman pack here. So it's 3 studs, 3 nuts. Part number is going to be a Dorman 03418 for these guys. It's supposed to fit Mazda. It fits Mazda. So I don't know what else to do on here as far as swapping things out, except for just pulling the accessory belt. That'll be my next thing. I'm just going to run it for a minute then, because this does control the water pump, and I prefer not to cook this new motor. Outside of that, I might just start driving it. See where it goes. If the turbo blows, but I don't know what else to think now. I'm out of ideas. So I'm gonna get the heat shield back on, try not to burn myself, and then pull the accessory belt and see what it does. So I cannot sort out that sound. It does not appear to be anything that's dire, I guess, just because it's not, like, checked out the vital components and nothing sounds like it's grinding. I checked the turbo outlet for metal shaving, see if maybe that's something. I couldn't find anything. I think it's maybe the turbo bearings are going bad for whatever reason. Again, don't know why they would be, but it's an idea maybe. So, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive it, because I bought this car, I built this car, I would like to, drive it, so that's what I'm going to do. With driving it, since I'm going to be leaving the neighborhood, I'm going to go ahead and throw these plates on, throw the plate on. Of course, went ahead with the new Colorado black plates, because they just look aesthetic, especially on something like this, because all these guys are going to be getting blacked out too. One thing though, if you're familiar with license plates in general, maybe the Colorado ones, these are completely flat. They look fake. Like these, when I got them in the mail, I thought they were fake. So, I don't know, it's a weird thing. But in the meantime, I'm just happy. I have something I can drive at the moment. Unless it goes kaboom within, a few miles, but we'll see. For now, I'm gonna go get a car wash, wrap up the video here, and yeah. Stay tuned for the next one, because it'll probably be new tires on the wheels, coilovers, and any other modifications we got to do to make it happen.